Hi, my name's Lucinda. Welcome to Loving Literature. Do you feel lost when your friends go on and on about the details of a movie you just saw? Or maybe you're in school and you dread going to English class because you have no idea what to say about the story you've just read. If either of those situations sound familiar, this video series could be for you. In this series, I'll give reading tips for textbooks and stories, their structure, elements, and genres, so that you'll have something to add to the discussions. If you love literature, I hope you'll join us too, because sharing ideas about the stories we love can be fun. A new video series called Loving Literature. And I've created it because I'm a teacher. For years, I taught English and drama at the high school level. And when I was teaching English, a lot of my students would come in and say, why do we have to take this class? Why is literature important? Because to them, math, science, technology, all those classes were important. But literature, they really couldn't, some of them couldn't understand why that was important. I love story. I'm not so great at math or those linear kinds of things that have only one right answer, because that's just not how my brain works. But I wanted to offer this series for people who are linear thinkers and who do have to have one answer and don't understand literature, because to me, literature, story of any kind, a movie, a play, all are the one way that we can walk a mile in someone else's shoes. If you want to be a good citizen in the country, in this country or in the world, if you want to be successful and be happy, it's important to be able to understand why people do what they do and why they think and feel the way they do. So literature is one way that you can do that. One way you can understand a little bit more about what it is to be a human being. Now let me tell you a little bit about my educational background so that you'll know that I know what I'm talking about. Well, first let me tell you about my father. When we were growing up, we lived in a series of small towns. We didn't have a lot of money. And so one of the things that our family did together was sit down and watch movies on television. My father particularly, although my mom got into these discussions as well, but when the movie was over, my dad would ask, what did you think of the movie? And I would always say, oh, I thought it was great, because I love movies, almost all kinds of genres of movies. And he'd say, well, oh, good. Well, what did you think was great about it? And so then I'd have to think, well, what did I think was great about it? Let's see. Well, I liked the characters. Well, okay, which character did you like? Then I'd have to think, which character was my favorite? And then as soon as I told him who my favorite character was, he'd say, what was it about that character that you liked? And he would go on like that, asking question after question after question, until finally we would figure out what the theme of the movie was. Now, that is something that all stories have in common, is something that I'll talk about later, is a kind of a plot structure. And if you're a linear person and you need to have a structure, then that's going to be part of the videos. I'm going to fill you in on what the structure is and what you can look for, that almost every story ever written or acted on film or on the stage has in common. Okay, so my father's the one who started me off loving literature. He's probably the reason that I actually became a theater artist later in life. When I was in high school, I went to two different high schools. My second high school, I loved my teacher, and she's the one who kind of opened my eyes even more to how important story is and character motivations and things like that. When I went to college, my first degree was in religious studies. When I graduated with that degree, my husband wasn't quite finished with his degree, so I added theater and speech. I had been acting in plays for a couple of years before I graduated. I loved it. And so it was just natural to get a second degree in that. And then later, a couple of years later, after I graduated, maybe it was 3 years, I got my master's in theater arts and started working in the Portland, Oregon theater scene, stage managing, working on costumes, acting. And I also taught at the local Parks and Recreation. I worked with students who were homeschooled. And then when my husband and I moved to Arizona, I decided to start teaching, and so I got a master's in education. I taught drama and English for about 10 years, and now for 8 years I've been working at the local community college teaching theater classes. So I've directed plays at both the high school and the college level, and it's so fun. I love the process. So for me, story is the heart of the things that I love. I'm also now a writer. I'm hoping in this series to kind of help people understand why literature is important, but also how to prepare yourself to read a story or a novel or your textbook. Getting back to why literature is important, I think that it's a way to walk in someone's shoes. You get to hear the characters' thoughts. You get to see why they're doing what they're doing. You get to understand how they're feeling. And most of the time, we are kind of in a little box of our own. And it's really difficult to understand another person's point of view because, we're not in their head. But literature is a way to get into someone else's head. So I hope that you enjoy this series. Come and join me and we'll explore literature together and have a lot of fun talking about movies and books and plays and all kinds of literature. Hopefully you will learn to love literature or at least be able to understand it a little better than you do now. Thanks for watching this episode of Loving Literature. My name is Lucinda. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.